Hello, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Panner. Any of those who want to call me, you can. This will be my first video I filmed since all the craziness, so it's been a while, but I'm really excited to get back to filming. But this will be an update for my Project Level Up Lite, and I will link in the end cards and the description box my introduction. If you just want to check out like me explaining this entire project, but I'm gonna do a long story short. The original Project Level Up was created by Sophie, who is Sophie Alexandra Hearts on YouTube, and she will be linked in my description box. But this year and last year I am doing the Project Level Up Lite, which is just kind of like an easier modified version that was first inspired by Ruth, who's Ruthfully on YouTube, but I don't think she's currently posting, but she'll still be linked. And yeah, this is my second year in a row doing the light version. I first started in 2024 with the regular version because I was panning all of my e.l.f. palettes, which have very shallow pans, but once I decluttered all of them, because I had like panned all of them, I only had stuff with very deep pans left in my collection. So last year I did Dose of Colors because that is my favorite eyeshadow brand, and then this year I decided to do what is not necessarily my second favorite, but out of all the brands that I have the most eyeshadow from, this would be my next favorite eyeshadow brand. Surprise, surprise, it's Sephora collection. So I am randomizing, and in the intro I rolled in my level 1 palette, which is the Blues Beauty. This is from the Playlist line, and I was really happy that I got this palette for my level 1, which just means that I have to use each shade once and use one shade, or like pick one shade to use 10 times instead of one time. I was really happy that I got this palette because not only is this just I'm not going to open it because I don't want to like spoil any potential progress, but basically ever since in like I think 2024 I scraped out the one blue shade in this palette, so it's no longer like a blue palette. But I just wasn't into that shade, but I was left with just cool toned browns, and I just absolutely love this palette because it's an amazing formula. Like the mattes were like Pat McGrath level mattes, which was really weird for a Sephora collection palette. I do love their palettes, but like for it to be so inexpensive, and like specifically this palette just had the best mattes I've ever had in a Sephora palette. But also I felt like the tones in this palette were really nice for this time of year, like just the cool toned like deeper neutrals. So yeah, I'll just show you my progress after all of my uses, which I did meet my goal on. This is what it's now looking like. When I first rolled it in, it already had this pan, and it already had the dips in these two shades here. If you can see, I have really good dips in both of those shades. I don't think I was necessarily like very close to pan in either of those because this pan took me over 100 uses to hit. Yeah, crazy. But I was thinking maybe like possibly I would try to pan or like choose one of these as my shade that I would use 10 times, because I don't know, maybe in some crazy world I would be able to hit pan on one of them, especially this one, because I feel like using shimmers, even though I would use this as like an eyeshadow primer setting shade, so I would use it all over my eye, I felt like I would use a more pinpointed brush in this shade, and it's like a metallic, so I feel like it might not be as firmly pressed as a matte. So I was thinking I probably had the best bet of hitting pan in this one with those 10 uses, but I was initially kind of torn between which of these two I was going to use for that 10 use goal, and it ended up being neither of them. I actually chose this shade here, which you can see now that there is, I mean, I now have, except for this one because it has hard pan, so well, and it has hard pan in the center, so I'm just not gonna get a dip in that one anytime soon. But everything else has a dip at this point. But this one, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's actually like a pretty good dip on it now. I still don't think I'm anywhere close to hitting pan on it because I'm not anywhere near 100 uses on it. But I chose that shade for 10 uses because I don't have it now. I put it away a while ago, but when I first rolled this in, I was panning my Terra Moon's Space Chemistry palette, and that one only had 2 mattes in it, just like a mid-tone brown and a deep brown. Everything else was a special shade, so I thought I'm going to need, I mean, I could have just used those 2 matte shades over and over again for every look, but I thought maybe I'll just like hit 2 birds with 1 stone and use this shade the 10 times and just pair it with that palette to have a matte to use. And that's exactly what I did. And then once I was done using that palette, No Pin Left Behind, which was that palette's goal, I continued using this with other things. One look that I really liked with that one, the last 2 times that I did it, was pairing it with this shade in my Pat McGrath palette that's in my Pan Those Palettes project this year. This one is probably like the least metallic, like it's still metallic, but it's the least punchy shade in this palette out of all 4 metallics. But I would just kind of like put this all over my eye on top of that shade. And that shade, if you build it up, it does get fairly deep, so I was kind of able to multitask it with like using a light layer on my entire eye and then building it up in the places that I really wanted it. And then I would just put this all over my eye on top of it, and it looked so beautiful. It's just such a beautiful, like, for me, subtle look, because again, it's just neutrals and it's not super punchy or anything, but it kind of just gave this like super like sultry smoky look that I really loved. And I think the tones honestly went perfectly with each other. They're just like both neutrals with a slight hint of warmth. Even though this is an all-around cool palette, maybe because of that, this one looks warm in comparison. It's probably just a neutral shade, and I think this one is as well, but they just, like, with everything next to them in the palettes, they just look like they lean slightly warm, and it was very flattering on my skin tone because I have warm undertones, so it just went very well. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about that so I can move on to my level 2. But I really, there goes a jet, I really enjoyed my time using this palette. The one thing I will say though is I feel like these mattes, I still love this palette and I'm still going to continue to use it, especially as a companion palette for the mattes. But I noticed that these mattes would sort of start to fade after a few hours. They wouldn't just like completely leave my face like Natasha Denona does, but they would start to fade in like depth and intensity a few, maybe like about 3 or 4 hours in. Like I wouldn't get a full day of wear with the same opacity as when I first started the day. So that is kind of a sign. They weren't like patchy or anything or like bad quality, but I feel like that is definitely a sign that this palette is getting older, which it is. I think I bought this in 2023, so it'll be 3 years old this year. So yeah, that's a sign that I need to show this more attention because I absolutely love it, and it's very useful and such good quality. So I just need to use it before I lose it. But that being said, it's time to roll in my level 2 eyeshadow palette, which means that this palette will get 2 uses on each shade, except for I have to pick 2 shades to use 10 times instead of 2 times. Hopefully that's making sense. I'm not good at explaining things at all, but by now you should see that my level 2 palette is my I Love Bloom Dahlia palette. This is the only palette I have from this collection. I always say that I really regret that because I bought this on a whim. It was like my first palette that I ever purchased, and this is such a good formula. It was from a line that was all cream to powder from Sephora, and they currently, Sephora collection currently has a different cream to powder formula, one that they like reformulated, but it is not quite as good as this one. This is literally like probably the best eyeshadow formula I've ever tried from any brand, and I don't know why they got rid of it. I also just noticed now that somehow I have a stain on my sweater right here. That's really sad actually. I've only worn this like 3 times. But back to the palette, this is what it looks like. If you remember, as if I haven't talked about it enough, this very nearly won my eyeshadow palette tournament that I did. It was either in 2025 or 2024, but I think it might have been 24. I was thinking of redoing it, but I literally just, as you can tell, I always have something crazy going on in my life and I just don't have time for that. But anyway, this very nearly won my eyeshadow palette tournament. It basically came in second place. It got to the semifinals, or did it make it to the final round? I actually can't remember, but nonetheless, this is one of my absolute favorite palettes of my entire collection. I love this so much. Like, I'm so lucky that my first palette purchase was such a good one, and this is probably what got me like my love for eyeshadow. I just think it's such a great palette. I could go on and on and on about this for like 5 more minutes, but let me just end my rambling here. So maybe I'm hoping that this won't take me more than a month to hit my goals on. So again, that's 2 uses except for 2 shades with 10 uses. Probably I think these neutral shades up here would be very easy to use as just like an everyday shade. And then probably this brown here, this metallic brown, because just like the Blues Beauty palette, I do like to use deeper metallic shades as like outer corner shades because I feel like they blend my like metallic shade on my lid better with my outer corner than just like a deep matte. So probably those will be the ones that I target the most. But I'm very excited to use this palette in its entirety because I just love it so much. And I just realized I forgot to do swatches, which I specifically wanted to do because I'm trying to be better at that, and these palettes are not very big palettes anyway, so it wouldn't take a long time. So on this side I have this palette. It is so beautiful. And then on the other side I have my Sephora Dahlia. These shades do look deeper on that, like both swatched and on the eye, than what they look like in the pan. So especially now that I'm as pale as ever, I do think I could get away with using this as a transition shade, whereas in the summer I usually use this to set my eyeshadow primer. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of have to play with this because I usually use this in like spring, also fall, because these are good fall tones, and then I probably use this in the summer as well. So basically every season except for winter, which is right now. So I'm gonna try to have to figure out how I like this best in the winter. It's not for me seasonally appropriate, but I'm still very, very excited to use it. I'm very glad that I got this palette because again, I love it so much, and that would just really suck if I went the entire year without randomizing this. So I'm not gonna look a gifted horse in the mouth. I'm just going to enjoy this palette and definitely try to get more use out of this one. If I need a companion palette for browns, I'll definitely think to reach for this. But that is all that I have for this update. I'm very excited for my next update, hoping to roll in level 3, but we'll just have to see. And until then, I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.